Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Steelheads Weekly, episode 5, I think, right, Mark? I think we're already
Yeah,
in week
episode
5
5.
here. Well into the season now with myself, Darius, Domingues, and of course, Mark Freitas. Mark, how are we doing this week?
I'm doing well. Nice little Steelhead beatdown Sunday, which we'll get into today. Um, yeah, I'm feeling better from being under the weather. I got a new memorabilia on the wall. Got Matt Sundin's autograph up there now, with my other Matt Sundin autograph that you can't see off camera, and his brand new book. Not a paid sponsorship, but fantastic book so far. That's new with me. What's new with you?
Not at all associated with the book or anything like that, but Mark got to meet Matt Sundin. I'm a little jealous, but yeah, pretty good stuff there, Mark. And I'm pretty good, taking in some Steelheads hockey over the last week. I know we both weren't at the game on Friday night, but it was an interesting one, and then an interesting weekend actually, like pretty lopsided, like in both ways, and we're gonna dive
Oh yeah.
into it. But we'll start with Friday. Barrie comes into Brampton, and Barrie, we were talking about it, we previewed it. Not the Steelheads don't like Barrie. Like there's some history there. They don't like playing in Barrie. And they're a tough team against the Steelheads every single time, even if they're like in the bottom of the conference some years. So they just they're very pesky with the Steelheads. And again, we talked about it last week. The Steelheads' power play was looking pretty good, but something to keep of note was that they didn't have a power play goal against the Saginaw Spirit. Their power play was not going that day. And again, in this game, 0 for 5. So that's something they're going to have to clean up. Definitely. Barrie does get on the board. They were actually just as bad on the power play. But yeah, again, not much to see in this game besides your top guys. Luke Misa, and this is something I wanted to get into. Luke Misa has been put in the center. We talked about it last episode. Are they going to go out and find a center for that top line, or are they going to keep Mac Donnell there on the left wing? Well, we have our answer. They've slotted Luke Misa up the middle to try and get him going, and boy, has he gotten going. He got 2 goals in this game. I believe he opened the scoring as well, and that top line was flying, and it looks crazy with him up the middle, that speed. So he's looking really good. And we'll get to Sunday in a minute because he was really good on Sunday. But Mark, what did you see in this game? And I'm liking that new look first line. I still think they can go out and get another piece, but man, that really added some dynamic, really a dynamic shift in that line.
Yeah, well, people forget that Luke Misa and Porter Martone have had chemistry together in the past, especially last season. They were killing it together until they got shut down in the playoffs, and then I believe Martone got hurt near the end there. So it's good, and it's gotten Misa going because, as you know, you and I have said too that Misa struggled this season so far. He hasn't looked as the same player, and I was expecting for a guy who is, who just got drafted, and especially by Calgary. Um, he would come in with a chip on his shoulder and dominate like how most of these guys do when they're drafted by NHL clubs. But so far, it hasn't been the case for him. But as you mentioned, putting him back on that top line with Porter Martone and Carson Raycroft, it looks like from what I saw in the game score Friday, it looks like it's paid off early. And Misa scored 2 goals on Friday as well as an assist, 3 points. So that's really good for him, and it might be what the team needs. And I still think they do need a number one center, but so far I know you have that in Luke Misa.
Yeah, he's taken that step up at least. Like he looked a lot better in this game, like a lot more alive at least than we've seen him in the last. He hasn't been noticeable this season to this point, I think. And this game, I think you could throw anyone between those two, like Martone and Raycroft. But
Yeah.
he looked good. He didn't look out of place. He was making plays, using his speed effectively. He obviously had 2 goals in this game. Martone took tonight off, I guess. I don't know. He took this game off. He didn't score.
No.
I guess he was getting bored of scoring or something, but still had a couple points in
Can't
this
blame
game.
him. It's no fun after a
It's
while.
just no fun if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, right? But
Use
he had
more
a couple.
purposes.
He had a couple assists. He got on the board still,
Hit a guy.
nonetheless. Throwing a couple big hits. That's right. Not afraid to mix it up as well. Love that from Porter Martone. But yeah, Luke Misa up and I agree with you in that they can still go out and get a top line center, if you want to call it that, or another piece, wherever that may be, maybe another winger, another guy like more depth scoring, another guy who can score, that can add something like some more depth scoring, just more insurance after Martone and that first line because they're still pretty good and they're gonna get goals, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know if you can look to certain guys who are playing lower in the lineup, like third liners, to get you a goal in the playoffs. They might need one more piece to really push them over the edge in terms of playoffs. But nonetheless, they look pretty good. But they lost this game. This, of course, was also Jack Ivankovic's return to the lineup after a 4-game suspension for fighting. He looked pretty good, but again, maybe some rust there. He didn't play in, you hear 4 games, and in the NHL, that's maybe a week. In the OHL, he missed almost a month. So he's been out quite a while and came back into this one, maybe a little bit of rust, whatever you want to call it. But certainly looked pretty good on Sunday. But what did you see from the goaltending as well on Friday and going forward? Because he's going to be a big piece. But just to wrap up, Barrie, what did you see in the goaltending and the game against Barrie? And don't like that they lost. I thought they probably should have won this game, but they got to clean up some things too defensively.
Yeah, no, he obviously coming back from a 4-game suspension is rusty, and he was like you mentioned in the OHL, it's so different from the NHL because they don't play as much as the NHL guys do because the NHL guys play Monday, Wednesday, like Friday, Saturday, whatever. But in the O, you're waiting a week or so. So he waited almost a month. Not even, I wouldn't say almost, maybe like 2, 3 weeks, but
3 weeks.
yeah, no, it's rusty for sure. It happens. So for him, I would just take that as, you lose whatever, brush it off, come back the next game, and which he did come back the next game, almost had a shutout. But yeah, it's nothing to be too concerned about. But I agree with you cleaning up things defensively because you can't leave your goalie out to dry. They did that with Gibson, so they can't do it with Ivankovic because it's just not good for anybody.
No, and they shouldn't be doing that. And they did a little bit of that in this game. And definitely not blaming Ivankovic. And I knew that, after this game, I was like, well, he's going to bounce back. This is not what he is, right? Like letting in 6 goals is not something he's going to do very often, if ever again, right? I would not expect that. But yeah, a lot of they got to take care of the puck a little bit better, I think, at least in what I saw from this game on TV. They got to take care of the puck a little bit more and capitalize on their chances as well because they're right there in the game with Barrie, right? Sometimes the games call for that. Sometimes it's going to be high scoring, whatever. But they got to take care of the puck a little bit more and defend the front of their net a little bit better. Just clean up a couple things defensively, I think, and they'll be fine. And get back to playing the way they were playing at the start of the season, at least defensively. It looked very clean and they were playing with confidence. Get back to doing that. And I know a lot of other teams have started to get their systems in place and we're well into the season now, but they got to combat that a little bit better, I think. But it wasn't bad. They lose 6-4. It's unfortunate, but you turn the page to the next night, and we were talking about this and we previewed this as well. Afternoon or mid-afternoon start in Guelph, 4 o'clock, and Guelph this year, not great. Last place in the Western Conference. Not a great team. And I didn't know what to expect, but it wasn't that. And I'll start with Ivankovic. Obviously, fantastic performance. And yes, Guelph is last place in the conference. They had a couple good scoring chances in this game that he shut the door. He looked like himself here. He looked really good. The team obviously looked great in front of him. But he really played with a lot of confidence here. And Guelph only got 1 goal. It was on the power play, and it was kind of a fluke goal. He probably should have had a shutout here. So a really big bounce back performance for Ivankovic in this one. And we'll get to the obvious in a second, but what do you see from Ivankovic in this one?
Played lights out, which is what you need from your goalie. It looks like he knocked off all the rust that he had from Friday, so that's a great sign for the team. And from what I saw, he made saves, and the team helped him out too. So all around, it was a good game for everybody. And for him, it's just one stepping stone to get back to where you were prior to getting suspended.
That's right, and he had 39 saves in this one. So
I saw that. A lot of shots too.
A lot of shots in this one. So yes, we'll get to the obvious. They beat Guelph 10-1, right? Pretty. It was 5-0 after the first, and I was like, okay,
I could do that in my sleep.
Yeah, it was getting a little out of hand, I think, after the first. I was like, oh, okay, this could get ugly here. But 39 shots saved still, right? They got 40 shots on goal on him still, and he shut the door. So it could have been a different game, right, if you have somebody else in net. But that was a good game for him to feel good again. I'm glad that he got that start as well. So really good for him. Luke Misa, 4 points on this one. Obviously, you're getting 10 goals, so Misa's got to factor in. He got another 2 goals. So he's feeling good. Zidlicki was the star of this one. 5 points, a hat trick, and 2 assists. Martone didn't even factor into the 3 stars of the game, and he had a huge game as well, factoring in with a couple points. The top line was going, right? But Misa obviously got second star honors. But what did you see from the whole team here? It's good to see Because in a game like this, you would expect like Martone to go off, for example, right? And he
Yeah, and
did,
he did.
and he did. But to see a guy like Zidlicki, take the reins here and get 5 points, that was huge for me. That was a really good sign.
Yeah, no, they played as a team, which is something we haven't really seen that much this season. I find that, in my opinion, personally, I thought maybe it's kind of too much of guys trying to be just heroes instead of playing
A
as a
unit.
team,
Yeah.
as a unit. Yes, that's the word. So and looking at their game stats right now too, like Martone already popping off, but he's just ranking up his draft stock. It's good for Misa as well, finally kind of getting into a groove after a slow start. And
Hmm.
as for Zedlicki, fantastic game for him. He's one of my favorite players on the team. Like the way he plays, I love the energy he brings. He's very fast. Sometimes his speed is faster than his hands,
Yeah.
but my God, he finally had a game where it's like, all right, he took over, and he's I don't think he's drafted, is he?
No, I don't believe so, and I think
No,
he's past his draft eligibility, I believe. So
yeah,
he might be a free agent signing, but he'd be a very good player. I think he can make the next step to the next level for sure.
he could, especially even if it's like the AHL or
Yeah.
ECHL or wherever, anywhere in pro. Uh, Guys like that with speed, teams always love picking up players like him. But no, it's good for him to have a game that like what he had. Hell, even Carmira's got on the board, so they got goal scoring from their top line, second line, their depth from Van Volsen and Carmira's, um, and everyone just played fantastic.
Yeah, you get a lot of depth scoring in this game, so obviously the top guys come to play. You get some extra depth scoring there. Shout out to Wikowski. I think it's Wikowski. He gets
Yeah, I
his
was gonna wait for you to
first.
say that. I was gonna butcher that name right there.
Got his first of the season in this one, so that it gets you feeling good too. And they're gonna need to rely on guys like this, like third liners, for example, to chip in for goals here and there. So like throughout the season. So the fact that he finally got on the board is very good. Spencer Sova, I wanted to get into him a little bit too because he scored on Friday. Another pretty solid game
Yes.
for him here, with a couple points, and like he didn't score or anything, but he's been very good. And you wrote an article about him. So I wanted to get into that a little bit and like maybe some comparables and what he's like done for the Steelheads here because I think it was a good trade. Like he's pretty good. He's filling in a role that they needed.
Yeah, it's incredible how this guy doesn't have an NHL contract. He's been
Hmm.
a three development three development camps and nothing, like no draft. But he's a big boy. He's 6'1", but he doesn't look 6'1" to me. I think he looks taller. But it's like I said in my article, he plays a good two-way game. He's kind of like the replacement for Chaz Sharp this year,
Hmm.
but left-handed. He does everything that Sharp does, defend, offense, and I put it comparable to him, like to Miro Heiskanen. Plays sort of the same way, jumping in the rush, not afraid to throw the body, and it's impressive.
What I admire about him the most, and since you brought that up to me too, and you wrote that article, of course, is what I really admire is yes, he has a good two-way game. Like he can defend, like you said. He plays a little bit bigger than he is, right? He just like maybe that's why he seems like he's bigger because he plays bigger.
Yeah,
But what I love and admire is when he jumps into the rush, man, he does it 100%. Like he is going for the goal, and I think that's good.
yeah,
Don't like go into it half expecting to score or maybe you're going to bail out, right? Like, no, go in and make the play. And he's doing that. There's so many times I'm like, who is that? And it's Sova in on the forecheck or jumping in on the rush or something with the wingers, right? So you're like, whoa, like didn't expect that. But he does that so often. And it's okay because they normally don't get a bit for it, but he's trying to make things happen. And I think that's a good thing. And it's some teams might not expect that. He goes really aggressive. He drives. He's very direct with it.
yeah, and I've never seen really. I mean, like, I'm gonna paraphrase here, but I've never kind of seen like, how he does in a way where it's like it's rare to see a defenseman jump in the play, and then as soon as the team has to go back on defense, this guy just
He's back.
hauls it back. And he did that in the game against Ottawa, where it was a 3-on-3, and he jumped in the play and then man just went back to defend. So that's something it's you like to have on your team. Someone you love to have on your team because it's rare to see again players kind of with that type of energy to do what they do.
Yeah, it's a little rare to see somebody jump into the play and then get back at the same time. And I remember that play specifically in overtime, and then it ended up going to a shootout. But he got back and
Yeah.
defended there. That game probably could have
Yeah,
ended in overtime there. But no, he's been really good for the Steelheads and
for
fills that
sure.
role. Like he's not exactly Chaz Sharp or what Chaz Sharp brings to the table, but he's filling that role that they needed so desperately. And again, he's an overager. I'm surprised he didn't. You know, a lot of the conditions around that trade was if he comes back to the OHL. It was basically a wash trade if he didn't come back to the OHL. That the Steelheads would essentially get all their draft picks back, I believe. But
Yep.
he is here. He's making a difference, and I think they're just starting. The skill was speaking for itself at the start of the season, and now it looks like they might be coming together here a little bit. There's
Yeah.
some growing pains, but I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, it for sure is. And then one more thing about Sova is like
Yeah.
actually two things. Actually, I want to say two things about Sova and one thing about Misa. I should have added. I want two things about Sova is looking at his stats here. He's only played in the playoffs once. That was last year.
Yep.
And looking at his stats, his rookie year 28, second year 39, last year 31, and then this year he's already has 11 points in 10 games. Um, for a guy like this to not be drafted to the NHL, it's a shame.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that could draft a defender, and he'd be a guy who I'm surprisingly shocked he hasn't been drafted because he puts up good points.
Yeah, he puts up good numbers and he's playing well for the Steelheads, I find, because obviously being in Erie, I wouldn't really pay attention or too much attention to him before. But no, he's playing well and he was passed over. And I believe this is his fifth season, it might be his fourth. I don't know if you have it in front of you, Mark. I could
Fourth.
be wrong. Fourth season in the OHL. And I would expect, sometimes guys like this are passed over. Not everyone's path is the same. And he could end up, as a free agent making his way at some
Mhm.
point to an NHL team, AHL, ECHL at some point. But I think he's probably too good to not make it to the next level somehow, whether it be signing or
Yeah,
whatnot. So another one of those guys. I mean, Chaz Sharp was the exact same thing, and he ended up signing with the Marlies, and he's there now. So he could take. You never know. He could take a similar path.
oh, for sure. And then the next thing I want to add about Misa is he didn't have a good. I'm not going to do my math because my math is horrible. But looking at these past two games, he wasn't doing so well, and now he's already at 10 points in 11 games. So he was low on the point totals, and then these two games, well,
Bumped him right
put
back
him,
up.
bumped him right back up where he should be after coming off an 81 point season last year.
Yeah, and you would like to see him repeat something like that, and he definitely can if he's put, in the center. I like him in this center spot. I like that he's been bumped up in this. I don't know if it was to get him going or what it was, but they've been playing well. I do like the dynamic with him in the middle between obviously Martone and Raycroft. So it's going to be good to see if that continues, and I want to see him more consistent, like putting up more points consistently, because obviously he scored in bunches this weekend. I want to see what he can
Yeah.
do over the course of the next couple of weeks, which is not a bad thing. I'm not complaining, of course, but
No.
I want to see what he can do over the course of the next couple of weeks, especially if he's playing with them. I want to see, maybe he can have a new career high. Who knows?
Yeah, and then you could kind of put in, not even kind of, you could put Raycroft back on the left wing because he's a natural winger.
Yeah.
You're having him at center, and like I said, you really had that chemistry with Misa and Martone. So, I mean, what's the what's gonna hurt? You put Misa in between those guys? My God,
And it
points.
allows Raycroft to be more free on the wing too. Like he doesn't have to be
Hmm.
as responsible defensively as a centerman. So it might open him up. Yeah, I mean he's been great, but it might open him up for more scoring opportunities as well. So well said there, Mark. For sure, totally agree. And I think it's time we get into a preview of this coming weekend. And it's gonna be an interesting one because Friday, the North Bay Battalion come back into Brampton. That's going to be a weird one. The first time in, I believe, 11 years that the battalion are going to be playing at the CAA Center in Brampton. So a little weird. I wonder if we're going to see a lot of Brampton Battalion jerseys, if people are going to come out, even if they moved away from Brampton, but back in the day they used to live in Brampton. I am very curious to see the atmosphere for this one specifically. And hopefully, obviously, the Steelheads, the new Brampton team, comes out with a win, but I am very curious to see how that's going to look.
It's going to be interesting. This is going to be my second time, seeing a team return home
Yep.
to where they used to play. Um, and I agree with going to actually say the same thing you said. Uh, it's going to be Brampton fans, all right, but I don't think it's going to be for the Steelheads. I think, there's going to be Brampton fans going to be pulling up the old battalion jerseys, similar to the first time when Niagara came to Mississauga back in
Yep.
'07. So I'm sensing it to be a lot of similarities to that first time, like I saw 15 years ago, 16 years ago, actually. So um, it's going to be a very, very different look. After a while, you get used to it, but the first time,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
it's going to be a thing. They come into the CAA Center a couple times this year, right? So it's not going to be a thing at some point. Like it won't be as
no,
big. But the first game, I am curious to see what the atmosphere is like. And not only that, and I want to skip over Saturday for a second, but they play in North Bay on Sunday. This is a 3-3 weekend. They play in
three and
North Bay on
three.
Sunday. It is. They
Oh
play
wow.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And I'll get to Saturday in a second.
I'm looking at the schedule, but the OHL schedule app is so weird because it shows
It
Friday,
is
then it
very
shows
odd.
Friday again, and then it shows Saturday, Sunday. Gotta fix the app, OHL.
The North Bay Battalion, as it stands right now at the recording of this podcast, have played 14 games. The Steelheads have only played 11, and they're 2 points behind the Steelheads, that is, in the standings. So this is a big weekend to really make a big leap in the Central Division here. So they
Yeah.
can really not only surpass them, and of course they've played less games, right? You put yourself in a really good spot here if you're able to beat both those teams. And then, of course, you play the Sarnia Sting on Saturday at the CAA Center, so you have two back-to-back home games. And Sarnia is middle of the pack team. They're there in the Western Conference, just kind of, hanging around in the middle there. So pretty decent team, and Porter Martone's former team. So that's pretty interesting storylines are there as well. But man, big weekend here. Couple storylines, right? Like you can really put yourself in a good position here in the standings if you beat North Bay even once, right? But twice would be fantastic. And on top of it, the battalion come back to Brampton. I don't think
Yeah.
many people would have ever seen this coming, so I'm very interested to see what that looks like on Friday.
Yeah, if you were to tell me this 10 years ago, I wouldn't believe you. I didn't think Brampton ever come back to the OHL, so um we'll see what they do. As well as I never realized here, Brampton's last in the Central Division. So if
Yep.
they can get 9 points out, no, two, four, sorry, nine. Where's my math today, guys? I apologize.
This isn't soccer,
Eh,
Mark.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking of the MLS. I'm thinking of MLS, yeah. If they can get 6 points out of this, you're back into the top five in the Eastern Conference, and then you could put yourself in a good spot of catching Niagara, who, by the way, I'm surprised is in first place.
Not only in top five, I mean, you bring up the Central Division being last. They've played the least amount of games, so there is that to it as well. And I am surprised that they are in eighth right now after their hot start. But they've played the least amount of games, so they have some room to catch up here at least a little bit. But
Yeah.
you'd like to see them start that this weekend, start getting going here.
Also, I know I don't want to get off topic here, but can we just talk about for a second that Peterborough's 0-10?
Yeah, so Peterborough, it's Peterborough has not won a game. They came very close against Oshawa Generals last Sunday, which I thought it was a crazy game. Crazy game. Oshawa ends up taking it at the end. Guelph has had a tough start, and they're last place in the West, but they have 3 wins still. The Peterborough Petes are 0-10-1 to start the season. Not great. They have 2 points. The next closest team to them has 7. It has not been a good start for the Peterborough Petes.
We don't see the Pete's probably until December. Oh man, hopefully they have a win by then.
I would imagine
I
that they would get
think
a win.
no, they don't play the Pete's until the new year.
Really weird scheduling this year.
Very.
But yeah, very odd start to the season for a couple teams this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, but for sure. It's the OHL. It's such a weird league. But no, to go back on the topic here of the battalion and Sarnia, this should be, a game where you at least probably get maybe 5 points, maybe four. So try that, and you're back into the things.
I think there's potential here if they play like they played this past weekend with the confidence that some of them gained. It could be a 6 point weekend. I really do believe that, but I think at very least it has to be a 4 point weekend to get yourself back feeling good and in the mix at least because you've dropped down to eighth. And yes, you played less games, but
Yeah,
got to get going here. That's for sure.
exactly. Because the point that they gave up a couple weeks ago, it'll bite you in the end.
It will.
For
It will. So
playoff seeding, of course.
Yes, exactly. And, if you win your division versus not has a lot to do with that as well. So
Yeah.
we will see how it shakes up. But I think that's it for this week, Mark. I think we covered everything, unless you
Yeah.
have any final thoughts on anything.
No, I think I've covered, most of the stuff I want to talk about. I mean, gonna probably pump out some Steelhead content either this week or next. Just gotta get some ideas on brainstorming here on what to cover next on the team.
Yeah, and there's going to be lots to talk about with 3 games this weekend, that is for sure. But that's it for this week, and we will see you all in the next episode.